podcast. Destroys families on the tennis court.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. I got heroes. I always do, but this is a special one. Marc Sessler, Gregg Rosenthal, already out of his chair, pen drop in his fancy, shiny Japanese suit. And to my right, he is the conscience of NFL Network. He is the great Steve Wyche. What's up, buddy?
I love when you say that because I'm like, there's a bad conscience and a good conscience. You give me a lot of
latitude. You know what I think? You're the guiding light of editorial matters, and you're an important figure at the company, and we're happy to have you back. It's been too long.
It has been too long. I'm glad to be here. I love the conversations that we have because you guys are so brilliant, man. This is good stuff.
Well, that's strong.
Wow, that's
you are.
That's
you are.
Smart.
Trust me, you guys
work.
No, man. Look, when I listen to your podcast, I mean, you guys. Some of the ways you guys approach things are so unique, man. And I think that's why this podcast is so good.
Do you have a favorite among the three of us?
Why do you always go there?
What? I'm curious to
Just
know
say
to find
Mark,
out.
He needs it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be honest.
I'll just say yes.
Whoa. It always does feel good to have Steve on because I feel like having Steve on, it's like it's validating. It's like we are really part of this company.
Oh.
You say he's the conscience
Right.
of the NFL. He's like the centerpiece here. And so if he's on our show, it's like we're legit.
Why are
real.
you wearing your suit jacket right now, Greg?
Because we did
So
NFL.
it's a bit of a weird move.
It's not. We did NFL Now. I did NFL Now today right before the show, and then I ate lunch, and there was
So
no
did
more
Steve
time.
Wyche,
He took
the
off
guiding
the
light
jacket.
of NFL Network?
He took off. I don't think this shirt can carry it on its own. I don't. It's just a basic bad.
It's a nice
shirt.
suit, Greg.
Okay, quarterback, we got to go up tempo here.
Steve,
let's go.
by the way, in addition to being all over NFL Network, you will be on the call for the HBCU Football Hall of Fame Classic on NFL Network on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Winston-Salem State University versus Central State, the Marauders.
Marauders, Division II action.
With Bucky, right?
With Bucky, Charles Davis, and Cameron Wolf. It'll be the third edition of the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic. I think the first time where it's featured two Division II schools. So, and one of them being the local school, Central State of Ohio, one of the few HBCUs north of the Mason-Dixon line. So it'll be good. Two programs trying to get back footing after, having some great years in the past. Central State giving us guys like Hugh Douglas and Eric Williams, and Winston-Salem giving us a Marc Sessler favorite, Yancey Thigpen.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a Sessler favorite, but
he was in my world. I knew him. I mean, so you're doing play-by-play. You've been grinding tape
You're living
with
out
these.
Mark's dreams. He wanted to be Bob Costas as a kid, and now you are there.
I wanted to be Jack Buck. Growing up in St. Louis, I wanted to be Jack Buck. And so I really got into this.
all right, so check that out. We got a good show today. Great show, perhaps. I mean, we don't know. It could suck.
Well, TBD.
Yeah, we'll find out in like 50 minutes. We're going to do our season predictions. Now that's fun. You know, that's fish in a barrel. That's fun because football is almost here. The preseason, get out of my life. He gone. Here comes regular season football a week from tomorrow. Bills, Rams across the street, and then a full slate of Sunday action and Monday Night Football. How exciting. So we're going to do our predictions for the new season. But before that, let's get caught up on a bunch of news as cut downs go down.
It's time for your boy. Joining some heroes. Steve Wyche. Yeah, we know he's the con. Steve Wyche.
Whoa.
He's here to drop some knowledge. Steve Wyche. On the ATN podcast. Steve Wyche. Steve Wyche.
I love it.
That was hot. That was kind of like, a little bit of, movie theme with techno.
Right. Well, now that people should know, and who was that, by the way?
Rory McGregor. Thank you.
Right
Excellent
on,
job.
Rory.
Longtime listeners, you may remember when Steve was on the show, I don't know,
During
a
Corona.
year ago,
During Corona, I
18
think it
months,
was. Yeah.
I said, hey, give us some Steve Wyche song submissions.
right.
And then we kind of sat on it, and Steve wasn't on the show for a while. He was on the network show, but not on the podcast. But guess what? The inbox was filled with gold.
Yeah, thanks, Rory.
So we'll give
love
you a
it.
little more taste of some
Oh, my
submissions
goodness.
for the Steve. Yes.
That
All
one
right.
came on May 30th, 2021.
Okay.
How about that? 2 days
Oh,
after
hell,
my
play
birthday.
another one. Play one more before we get to the
Here
news.
we go.
Out on the beat
Yeah.
in Atlanta, he makes more money than all you boys combined. Who's that man with the silver hair?
Yeah, right.
It's Steve.
I want that in the rotation.
Yeah,
that
that's
one's
kinda hot.
that's-
I'll
yeah,
do
that's-
respect to Rory. That's my leader
That's
in the
kinda hot.
clubhouse.
You know,
that was
That's the win-
sultry.
You know,
that's the
with
winner for
DB
me.
and Jamaican, a lot of reggae music.
That's what I
going on.
mean.
Yeah, that had
Her
no
wife
weight.
is
No,
Jamaican.
Jamaica,
Jamaican.
the silver hair, it was to the point.
And
that-
I think
sure.
I don't know about the salary thing.
Not
But-
sure who was on the vocals there, but submitted by Jonathan Verbetten.
All right, so we did. I remember there were some guardrails. Get in that Steve's the conscience. Get in that he's a man to be respected. Give it a little reggae flair. I remember was in there,
That was in there. That was
if I
part of it,
recall.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll hear some more at the end of the show. But let's get to the news. See, the listeners, they never let us know.
And Rory gets $10,000 American dollars for winning that contest too.
from you. I thought that was
you
very
personally.
generous.
I'll pay him
of you,
directly
yeah.
from my savings account.
Hit your Venmo.
Let's start with some news that went down on Monday that the 49ers and Jimmy Garappolo almost impossibly are staying in business together. Ian Rappaport reported that the Niners restructured Garoppolo's deal. He'll be a free agent at the end of the season. So there's some reporting out there that Garappolo was, shrewd in how he timed his shoulder surgery, and we can get into that. But let's first hear, who is this from? We're talking Kyle Shanahan?
This is John Lynch.
John Lynch, the general manager of the 49ers.
Kyle and I just started floating the idea probably a month ago. What if we kept him here in a backup capacity? And, at some point we shared that with Jimmy. It was important for Kyle to let Trey know that, that may be a possibility.
Saucy. So, Steve, A, are you surprised? How surprised were you by this? And B, how much pressure do you think this puts on a young Trey Lance that Jimmy G is going to be in this building?
I was surprised by this because, I know they wanted to trade him. They already had made up their minds that they're moving on to Trey Lance. But then, of course, the shoulder surgery came, really took him off the market. Jimmy would have been gone months ago if he didn't have that shoulder surgery. So you get to this point, I'm thinking he's going to be cut. Right, let's go ahead and cut our... So the fact that they did this, they made it a tradable contract. Now, the fact they gave Jimmy a no-trade clause is very intriguing to me. But basically, he's saying, hey, if a guy gets hurt down in, some non-competitive team, I don't want to go there. But I think this is more for a tradable contract. If something happens, if there's an injury a little bit later on, they do have the luxury, and I will call it that, of having him as a backup quarterback. But yes, this could be potentially awkward. No matter what we say about, hey, they're sticking with Trey, Jimmy Garappolo is one of the most liked guys in the NFL by his teammates, by people in the building.
You said on NFL Now that he was one of the best humans you've ever covered in your life.
He is a fantastic dude. I love the guy, right? He has that effect on everyone, though. He treats everybody like, they're special. Like, hey, really happy to see you. He would come in here and say, Gregg, that sport coat you have on is A1.
He'd be right.
He would, but
Is that fabric Japanese?
It gives me those eyes and forget it.
It's over,
I'm
right?
melting.
Beautiful.
But just the fact of Trey Lance, he's going to have growing pains. The guy has 2 starts, right? He's going to have growing pains. There will be calls for the media if they hit a 2 or 3 game losing streak. Should we go ahead and make the move? This could cost him the season if Kyle waits. Will his stubbornness? Kyle has got to stick with, and I think this is a legitimate comparison, same club. He has got to stick with Trey Lance the way that Jim Harbaugh stuck with Colin Kaepernick when they moved on from Alex Smith. Remember, Alex Smith got hurt, Cap stepped in, Alex Smith came back healthy, and Harbaugh was like, we are riding with Kaepernick. They rode him deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, but Cap balled out. And
well, who's to say Trey Lance won't? That's the thing.
I think it's a no-brainer if he balls out. But if he struggles and he goes through some kind of a roller coaster of what's really his rookie season.
If he loses 3 straight games at any point,
and
like
Jimmy G sitting on the bench, it's going to become a big story at the very least.
It has to. It's a very unique situation. We have not seen this happen very much. It's the same thing where, Andy Reid went with Mahomes over Alex Smith. And Mahomes had growing pains, right? He's got to stay committed to this. Otherwise, it could become awkward, especially. Remember, guys, George Kittle would come to press conferences with Jimmy G on a T-shirt. When the players in that locker room know this guy's not a bad player, he knows what we're doing.
Well, he's so popular and is so part of the culture there that they were afraid to let him practice with his own teammates. That's like the process to get here was totally bizarre. They either misunderstood his market or misled the media at various points or just didn't know how this was going to play out and were surprised by it all. But I can't come up with another example in NFL history where a guy was not allowed to have the playbook or play with his friends. They said, go to another field. You can't play with your friends over here. Go over there. You can't really practice with us. Well, we're going to keep you in bubble wrap. So they didn't expect any of this, and that's all awkward. And then I say all that just to get to the point that, like, well, this makes them better. It totally makes sense from a football sense. I don't think you should act scared and be worried that it's like putting more pressure. The media is going to talk about it. Like, it does make you better.
I can't think of a coach.
It was up to Jimmy G, right?
I can't think of a coach that cares less what the media thinks about the whole journey to get here. Well, Kyle Shanahan, just to me, he's going to go do what he wants. And Trey Lance has thrown 389 passes since high school. And the Niners, over the last 5 years of Shanahan's reign, have lost 30 starts to quarterback injuries. And that just wrecked them a couple of those seasons. They weren't the team they were. This is a win-now team. And I think the idea of going into the season with a green behind, like a wet behind the ears Trey Lance, you don't know what he's going to be. To Dan's point, he could be great, but if he's not, they have a great security. This is a win-now team. They don't have time to spend 3 years developing a quarterback. They think they're a Super Bowl team, and I think this for them is the best possible solution if it's not too awkward for Trey Lance.
Doesn't it feel like good news for the 49ers and their fans, and maybe not such good news for Trey Lance? But if he's a real deal guy, he won't crumble from this. It will just drive him even more to kick ass.
And Shanahan said he was happy that Jimmy G was there, that he loves having Jimmy G there. That was one part of it where actually I believe that if they have that strong a relationship, and Jimmy G's been a great teammate to him, and from what you said, that's the type of dude he is. I don't think that's going to bother Trey Lance. It's just going to bother him if he's struggling. It was ultimately up to Jimmy G. Jimmy G could have just said, no, I'd rather go elsewhere. But he kind of probably realized that this was his best chance for success and money. They kind of they made it very difficult for him to make his fair value because they held on to him this whole time.
Well, that contract changes if he starts. It goes up a lot.
It goes up, and again, it makes it tradable, right? It makes it a tradable contract. Let's say Kirk Cousins gets hurt up in Minnesota.
Yep.
Okay, they can trade for him. Right, he can go there and get things rolling right away. But also to your point, Mark, when you talked about they've had all these games lost to quarterback injury. Who's been the quarterback who's been injured most of that time? Jimmy Garappolo.
Right.
Okay, the durability issues. John Lynch came out before they made the trade for Trey Lance. Like, we have got to get a very good backup quarterback because we know
Jimmy
Garoppolo.
They gave Nate Sudfeld $2 million guaranteed. He didn't even make the team.
Yeah, because they knew that Jimmy Garoppolo was so injury prone. So that's why they're like, we cannot keep on rolling the dice and getting Jimmy for 11 out of 17 games.
And one last point, if you're a team that has to get a quarterback on the fly, we already have proof that Jimmy G could hit the ground running.
Yeah.
He went 5-0, I believe, when he got traded from New England to San Francisco.
I will tell you one thing to your point, Steve, about
that's not how final points work as we transition, but go ahead.
I can think of people on the show that add final points on final points probably 40 times a show. So I will just say that Wes and I one time at the scouting combine ended up seeing Jimmy Garappolo at the airport, and we recognized him when I think back then a lot of people wouldn't, but you're just spending all week watching him.
Humble brag.
Well, I guess it's part of our job, but he could not have been nicer, a wonderful dude. And then we saw him back in L.A. when we got off the airport. He's like, what are you two still doing hanging around? It's like I just was like, I like this guy from the start. You're
like, that's how planes work. Like, if you're on the front end, you're going to be getting off the back end.
We were on the same flight as you, sir.
It's a good anecdote.
What?
I liked it.
I'm not saying it was a killer anecdote, but it backs up what Steve said, that he right away he struck me as a nice human being.
Wonderful guy.
I wish you would have your anecdote was countering what Steve said, and he was like a prick to you at the airport.
I would add
that would have been great.
I would add that Wes and I, on that plane, we don't need to go a lot deeper, might not have been the most easy people.
That flight.
Yes. So if anything, he was very accepting of our
They came
presence.
They came back to hot water. The newsroom was hot for these
That's
two.
as far as we'll go. But
that was an oral history waiting to happen, that flight for you boys.
Okay.
Let's just say we were not the conscience of the NFL.
So hopefully
of
off
NFL
air.
Network.
All right, let's move on. Tre'Davious White, one of the best cornerbacks in the AFC. He's been placed on the reserve PUP list by the Bills, which means the soonest he can come back is Week 5 against the Steelers. He tore his ACL in Week 12 last year. Do they give up that game-tying field goal in the final 12 seconds of the AFC Divisional Playoffs if Tre'Davious White is on the field? Maybe, maybe not. You think
Plus
about
the 3 straight touchdowns in the 7 minutes before that.
They're probably the Super Bowl champions if he doesn't tear his ACL. Now, that's conjecture. Now, Steve, Smart move, right? Well, an obvious move. If he's not ready, he's not ready. But also, these Bills are planning to play in February. Make sure your stud secondary star is 100%.
Yeah, I mean, look at their division, too. I mean, is it going to take 14 wins to win the AFC East? No,
11, maybe.
11,
Yeah.
maybe. So, yeah, get him healthy. You hope Kyer Elam, the rookie who they drafted, can come in and play. And they've got some other pieces on that defense. If they decide to target that corner, if some team goes after him, you roll coverages that way. I mean, there's things you can do depending on who they play. I mean, week one's going to be one hell of a game.
Right, like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are the best
studs.
Safety, veteran duo out there. Although Poyer's coming off an injury,
right.
They're going to have to earn their money, though. I mean, I think it was a very significant move to happen because of that first game. They've got the Dolphins coming up too. I think the Ravens are early in the schedule.
They got the Titans.
That is weirdly one of the worst cornerback groups in the league on paper, because Elam reportedly didn't have a very good camp. He might split reps with Christian Benford, which is a 6th-round pick. And then you're starting a guy, Dane Jackson, who's also stepping up and has never really been in a role opposite him. And you got to go against Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson. It's a lot to ask. That's all.
They
do have
ask.
one weakness now. Like the Bills almost look so too perfect, and now this is their
every team's got one
at
least.
Their offensive line inside, interior is not great either. They've got. I do think they're a little too easily being projected just to be shotgunned into the AFC title game. We will see. We will see.
Speaking of teams suddenly being projected to be, what did you call it? Slingshot? Fire
I don't even
blast?
remember at this point.
Into
that was 8 seconds
the
ago.
championship game. The Philadelphia Eagles make another move. They acquired defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and a 2025 7th-round pick from the Saints in exchange for a 2023 5th-round pick and a 6th-round pick in 2024. Gardner-Johnson, just 24 years old, Gregg, enters the final year of his contract. Saints couldn't get an extension done, so now the Eagles shore up a spot of their defense that needed some shoring up. Seems like a nice move by your boys.
I mean, it seems amazing. The Eagles are becoming too trendy, but I don't care. This was perfect. They've been looking for a guy like this, a safety who can play slot corner. That the reports are that he'll probably play more safety in Philadelphia. But the fact that they got him for nothing is insane. This was terrible business by the Saints. And weirdly, all the reporters in New Orleans sort of, well, they had to deal him. He wasn't nice to the coaches the last 2 days. Can you remember a player that was a borderline Pro Bowl player? We've been talking about C.D. Deuce as a guy we love since his rookie year. Right. Dynamic. Just being given away out of nowhere without anything too crazy. I blame the Saints for that because either they could have traded him earlier in the offseason, before free agency, for a 2nd or 3rd round pick, or you just fix the relationship. You have the leverage here. 1 year of CD Deuce is worth way more than the Flotsam and Jetsam that they got picks. It was just a weird position of weakness. Just give a good guy away. You almost never see it. And the Eagles benefited.
I mean, it just sounds like the relationship completely broke down. And I'm with you. Find a way just to make it work for 1 year. But Dennis Allen said, we think we did what was best for the football team, which I always read as code of this guy and what's going on with him right now, we can't deal with anymore.
Supposedly, he wanted to be paid as a safety. They weren't going to get there. The contract wasn't going to happen. In that, I guess the last couple of days at practice, they were he wasn't speaking with his coaches. So I guess that's the playbook. All you have to do is not speak to your coaches for 2 days. Your team will give you away no matter how good you are for you to get your contract. I'm just saying they could have handled it differently. It felt like they got in their feelings and just was we want to get rid of this guy. Who cares for what?
Yeah, I mean, they could have. They've got some talent back there as well. So
that's what they said. They feel great about their depth, which I get.
And look, and they might say, they might be like the Patriots. Okay, so we lose J.C. Jackson. Guess what? There's a whole lot of corners we've developed and let go. So the Saints might be like, there's a whole lot of DBs we've developed, which is true. I mean, Marcus Williams being one of them. That dude's a hell of a player. Who's gone to Baltimore
also gone.
now. Who's gone. But so they may feel, we can develop guys. We added Ty Matthew. So that might just be part of their philosophy.
Let's talk about Malik Willis is the number 2 quarterback on the depth chart. Mike Vrabel announced it, so Ryan Tannehill's the starter. Let's hear from Vrabel on that.
Malik did some things that were really encouraging that we had talked about. His ability to step up into the pocket, kept his eyes downfield at times. Also was able to have some explosive gains running. which is exactly what we talked about. The operation was better, but, then there's some things we have to improve.
Ryan Tannehill, let's bring a Gravedigger on this, the Titans fan. Gravedigger. Infinite rope for Ryan Tannehill, right, this year?
This season, yeah. I mean,
what do you mean infinite?
Like,
what if they're 2-6?
If they're 2-6, then maybe you see what Malik Willis can do.
Really? You don't give him? He's done some things for you.
I mean, it could potentially be a 2019 style season where the Tannehill-Mariota change happened, but honestly, I don't see that for Malik's rookie
how
year.
would you not get him on the field in certain situations? I would love to see a sub package for him for sure.
I think Tannehill's earned essentially infinite rope, and I don't think the Titans will be bad enough that they would want to replace him. But I do think Malik Willis's preseason has gotten slept on. That dude was, to me, the most exciting player in the preseason. He did to third stringers, granted, a lot of the times, what he did in whatever Liberty's conference is. Do they even have a conference, Steve? I should know this. I think they're independent. I don't even know.
You should know that?
They're in like the CAA or something like that.
He made people look silly, and people were like, well, he's holding on to the ball too long. Like, his time to throw improved dramatically in each week. By the third week, he was doing what Vrabel wanted him to do and get rid of the ball quickly. But, oh, by the way, all three of those games, he did stuff that was like, my God. Like, I can't wait to see this guy play football. And that's, like, not a guarantee that that's going to happen. Whatever people were excited about, his physical gifts, they're extreme. They're amazing. And, like, I'll look forward to it if he does play for some reason.
They're going to use him. I guarantee it as soon as week one.
He's one of these guys who clearly is coachable. He did not play under center from the time he was like 7 years old, right? So these are things. He's not the only quarterback that comes out in the draft who's always played 7-on-7 football, basically. That's what happens now. So he can see the field a little bit differently. He's got to see defenses. Back when I was talking to Hugh Freeze, Liberty's coach, about Malik, he's like, teams played very careful defenses because at that level, when you've got a hyper athlete like him, they will play scared defenses as opposed to aggressive defenses. That's not the case in the NFL. So if he has to get a chance, I mean, I think I'm with you, Mark. I think you've got to find ways to get him in, maybe 2 or 3 plays a game, just so he can feel it, because you never know. And look, Ryan Tannehill, he's talked about what that playoff game did to him last year. Right. Is he going to be able to fully sustain if things get a little sideways? So I think the Titans, with that run game and everything, are going to be in the mix. But I'd love to see Malik Willis get on the field as well.
Like, I get he might not be totally ready, but there's some Josh Allen stuff here. Like, just the physical. I think as these quarterbacks keep coming out, they keep being the best running quarterback just about that we've ever seen, because they just keep getting better. And Malik Willis, in terms of his running ability, could be close to that Lamar Jackson level with the arm strength of a Josh Allen. And maybe it'll take a while, like a Josh Allen, to get ready, but the gifts are crazy for a late.
Well, people thought Lamar Jackson wasn't ready. It was like suddenly Joe Flacco looks like carved out of stone in the pocket there. We make a switch and they're on fire. The offense looks completely different.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say about this is that all the buzz around Tennessee when this was happening was about, like, can Malik improve as a passer? And people kept saying things like, well, we knew what he could do with his legs. And to your point, Gregg, like, no, you don't know. Just because he does it in college doesn't mean it's going to translate. So I think some of the stuff with the sidearm, like arm angle to get around defenders and things like that was really impressive and encouraging for Malik's future.
And lastly, with the arms and the legs, this dude is a brick house. I mean, he is built like a middle linebacker. He is a stout guy with incredible balance. So he'll be able to take a little bit of the punishment. And he'll be able to break tackles as well. That's the one thing when I talk to scouts who's coming out, like, this dude breaks tackles.
That's what I mean.
Like a big stud, big thick tailback.
Like Hurts, like a better, like an even more dynamic version of Hurts. But I think Hurts' running ability ended up being so underrated because it's been so good for him.
Another quarterback that took punishment in the last preseason game for the Lions was David Blough. And he peeled himself off the turf every time, stayed in the game. And after Tim Boyle was cut, you thought Blauhard stood up, Mark, and they were excited because it looked like he was going to be Jared Goff's backup. But we learned today that David Blough also cut. And a corresponding move, Nate Sudfeld was brought on to the Lions. So I think we turn it over to you, Mark, and what I imagine is a very difficult time.
Well, yeah. I mean, getting to know David Blough even more than in the past through Hard Knocks, the person I've struggled.
Are you reading off the Blauhard's newsletter right now?
No, I mean, the Blauhard's newsletter is actually in production after the show. I've got to go.
It's snail mailed out.
It is snail. We mimeograph it. It's typewritten. It's a weekly newsletter. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's so bad for the." The thing is, like every great story has its ups and downs, and I do believe that this is just a down right now for David Blough. He will find his way back on the field, and what a great chapter that will be. It tells me
they want to add him to the practice squad if he doesn't get a job elsewhere.
Well, you can do great things on the practice squad potentially, and other chaos can strike. But it does tell me the Lions. I like this about my one thing about Hard Knocks, and we haven't really talked about on the show. Their coaching staff to me is just so fun to watch. I mean, they're just a different type of NFL coaching staff. I think that Dan Campbell is not getting the kind of credit. I respond to him as a teacher and a motivator and kind of keeping that frame of that team through all that's gone on, good or bad. And they didn't just shy away from what they needed to do. They didn't fall victim to the Hard Knocks story where it would be nice to keep David Blough. They made a cutthroat decision based on the quarterback position, the backup quarterback.
Cutthroat.
Well, I think they just said, we've got these two guys, we're going to upgrade. And if
they got rid of Tim Boyle too.
Right. David Blough is just going to have to prove that there's another chapter.
I just wonder.
But the story is not over, Dan.
If the receiver that also got cut, the underdog receiver,
Pimpleton,
juggler, if he catches that ball for the touchdown, does David Blough still have a job?
Do they both have a job?
Well, that's fair to say too. And of course, check out the Hard Knocks podcast with me and Colleen Wolfe, where we talked about all of this stuff. And in fact, and you mentioned Wes earlier, there was a moment where Jared Goff, by the way, finally showed up in the episode, and they catch a conversation between Goff and Blough talking about practicing without any coaches. They did a no coaches practice. The players ran the show. And this exchange between Goff, who I think you'll hear first, and Blough did remind me of Chris Wessling. Let's listen in.
They're sitting up there in the air conditioning, What's that quote? The man in the arena?
It's the doer of the deeds.
That's right.
The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena.
That's right.
Whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood.
Not the coaches who are drinking coffee in the air conditioning right now.
That's good
so
stuff.
Goff had the zinger, but it was the Blough comment that reminded me of Wes. So you'd just be in a random conversation with Chris, and he'd just quote from some book he had read or just off the top of his head with that folksy wisdom that he had. That did give me a bit of a Wes vibe.
There was great depth to Chris Wessling in ways that you just learned more and more as you got to know him, and I think that applies in a different, unique way to David Blough.
High praise.
Maybe that's why we connect with David Blough. Maybe that's why he has a newsletter that it's finished, it's and then it takes 3 or 4 days to get to you because that's the U.S. Postal Service.
But there are a lot of people in Australia and Europe. That's about
later.
12 days, 13 days. It's expensive to mail.
Real quick, 8 o'clock delight, and then we're taking a break, and then we're getting to predictions. Alex Leatherwood, first-round pick of the Raiders last year, claimed by the Bears. Steve, real quick.
Well, the Raiders love it because it took $6 million off of their salary cap.
Yeah.
And look, why not though? Because if you get a guy who ends up playing, then you get him for $6 million. On the rest of his rookie contract. This will not help the Bears generate more W's, though.
No. Dolphins plays cornerback Byron Jones on the PUP list with an ankle. That's a high-paid player that is not on the field.
Yeah, similar to the Bills, I think they are very thin at cornerback. That is their weakness. Despite having Xavier Howard, they do not have many other quality corners.
Another high first-round pick, Marc Sessler, O.J. Howard in the past. He was cut by the Bills, so he couldn't stick with them. The rap sheet reports he's expected to sign with the Bengals.
25 catches over the past 2 seasons, injured a bunch, sort of a guy that I think career-wise has fallen off a cliff after being a high-potential sort of fantasy target. Not today.
I think he got more guaranteed money than any player who got cut this offseason. $3 million plus didn't make the team.
Speaking of fantasy, Dameon Pierce, the runway is clear after the Texans cut Marlon Mack. You like what you see from Pierce, Steve?
I do. And much to your dismay, I like what I see from the Texans.
Ooh. Me?
Okay.
Am I against the Texans?
A couple weeks ago, you were like sick of Texans corner.
Like you were tired of Gregg and I, joining arms on
they
that.
better win.
Joining
They
arms
got
on
Things
games.
going on down there.
Let's keep rolling. Kellen Mond cut in Minnesota, claimed by the Browns. Mond, of course, was floated as a potential Kirk Cousins replacement just because the old coach hated Kirk Cousins. Yes or no?
No.
All right. Jesus. Steelers acquire outside linebacker Malik Reed from Broncos, Guard Jesse Davis from Vikings in trades. Running back Ryan Robinson. That's such a Gregg one. Running back Brian
it
Robinson.
shows what they're concerned about. They are not happy with those positions.
Brian Robinson is out of the hospital, and he's expected to be on the Washington roster. Good news there. Texans claim wide receiver Tyler Johnson on waivers from Bucks. Chargers officially add Sony Michel to the backfield after he was cut loose. And sources say the Eagles are trading former first-round wide receiver Jalen Reagor to the Vikings in exchange for a draft pick. Steve, anything from there that gives you juice?
Well, the Sony Michel pickup makes a lot of sense because the Chargers are looking for a bruiser, and he's great in pass protection. So you got to help keep your most valuable asset, Justin Herbert.
If you look at the picks, the Eagles basically traded Jalen Reagor for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah.
And Cowboys fans,
how are we getting it done?
Cowboys fans are hating this because they got more for Reagor than the Cowboys got for Amari Cooper, essentially, which is one of the worst trades of the offseason.
No doubt about that.
All right, and that's what's happening in the news. Let's take a break and get to predictions. All right, here we are. Fun. It's fun to do predictions. In fact, if you want to check out predictions from people all over the NFL media landscape, go over to NFL.com. It's probably on the homepage. I mean, I don't know. Most likely. I would think, based on our history working in the newsroom and
NFL.com/predictions. I just guessed
it. That's good,
and it
too.
was there.
But back to my homepage conversation. I think it's going to be up there for a good 24 hours. It's kind of evergreen content, perfect for this time of year, Steve.
Perfect.
You've worked in many newsrooms.
I have. I thought you were going to drop a bag of nails reference.
No bag of nails reference here. So we're going to go through basically what the great Gennaro Felice, who works with Ali Benpari, the features editor, he sends out the email to us. Hey, give us some predictions, all awards, division, your Super Bowl pick, and we're going to share our thoughts now. So
interestingly, Steve Wyche, not one of the people who responded to the email.
Really, Steve?
This is something you can do, I guess, when you're the conscience.
No. I was told.
Wow.
I was told by a certain person at this table to keep it nimble. He's my favorite, by the way.
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. But
Mark,
he told me to keep it nimble.
Mark just is glowing right now. The genuine smile on his face was like, finally.
I was like, I'll get it to you. He's like, no.
I love you also.
No, I meant you did not send it to the editors.
Well, hold on. So I spoke with Ali,
I did not
and
receive it from
Ali
the editors
said to
either.
me, to Steve's defense, that they don't send this out to
team reporters.
Typical reporters type.
Don't want to show bias. Okay, I take it back.
So again, you are the conscience.
I'm really sorry.
That's terrible. That's terrible rationale
above
by Gennaro, because I have done this in prior years. So
Now Gennaro taking shots, but I don't think it was his decision. It came from above Felice, I think.
Yeah, I like Gennaro because I sent mine in a day late, and he still allowed it to be included in the article. Missed the deadline like I was asleep at the wheel.
All right, so why don't we start? All right, let's start at the top because I think that will connect with some other things, and we'll just kind of go down, right?
So we'll go divisions. We'll do the awards.
Well, let's start with. You want to do the awards first or the divisions
awards
first?
because the divisions leads to Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I think the awards is good.
Awards what? Last?
First.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it. MVP, Steve.
Patrick Mahomes. Say what you want about his lack of receivers. He's Patrick Mahomes. He will be the MVP.
Right, and I think the narrative. He was my pick too. He was also Mark Ross's pick. The tied for the third most popular pick among our writers.
Ooh, I like. Are you going to keep giving these nugs through the article?
Sure.
I like that.
I think people will actually give him extra credit if he's just Patrick Mahomes because Tyreek Hill's not there. Like I can just see that being.
That's a great point.
A lot of times it's a narrative award, as you like to point out, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it won't be 50 and 12 touchdowns, interceptions like that incredible 2018 season. But if it's like maybe closer to that first Rodgers MVP year of the back-to-backs he's just won. Right. Similar situation.
And he heard Mark
Devontae
talking
Adams.
about that Justin Herbert was the Michael Jordan of the NFL. And I'm like, Patrick Mahomes is right there.
Well, I will segue off of that to tell you that football is completely different than basketball.
Well, that's true.
I picked Justin Herbert, and someone else at this table did too, along with a couple other people.
I did take Justin Herbert as well. I like it. I like the stars are aligning for Herbert, who, there's definitely a segment of the football community that absolutely adores Herbert already. But maybe this year with that little extra bump, and
And the team being good, right?
Very importantly, the team has to be better. They need to be either win the West or make the playoffs. And I think Herbert, with big numbers, becomes a massive star.
And opposing NFL coaches are like, Justin Herbert is God. Like they just see something completely different in him.
I'm getting killed for suggesting he's a Michael Jordan-esque figure, but now that the coaches who actually coach are calling him God. So let's maybe take our foot off the gas a little.
Not sham God, but God.
Right.
I'm looking at the Vegas odds. He's tied for 5th. In terms of most likely, Josh Allen is
the Vegas nugs too. Greg, you are on fire
favorite.
right now.
And he got the most votes. Josh Allen with 12. Herbert was second with 6. Then Burrow. Someone not named David Carr voted for Derek Carr. That was our editor, Ali.
For
Bonpuri.
MVP.
Interesting. Lamar and Aaron Rodgers.
That's
got one
gutsy.
Vote. Yeah.
The one making the editorial decisions, calling the shots, has Derek Carr as the league MVP.
That's correct.
Well, his job is to help format the article. It's formatted very
and
well.
No
if
one
you go
voted
to look
for
at
Tom Brady.
Everybody's bored.
That's fair.
Offensive Player of the Year. Now, we've talked about this on the show many times, especially Greg hates it.
I always refuse. I abstain every year.
Did you abstain again this year?
Yeah.
Stupid.
Well, it's like Best Picture, Best Director. You just give it to the other person that
silly.
didn't.
What do you got, Steve?
Joey Burrow.
Great
Joey
pick.
Burrow.
That would have been a good MVP pick. How many MVP picks for Burrow?
He was tied with Mahomes. He got 2 votes, including Burgo and Kurt Warner, 2 of the titans of the NFL media.
I love Burgo and Warner. Okay. I have I'm looking at bounce back year.
So funny to just see those names next to each other.
It's the only time Burgo and Kurt Warner will ever really be in a shared
and Warner.
space. You know?
Like totally like Burrow checks in on these. He's like, oh, sweet. I got Bergman. Who's that Warner guy?
I'm going kind of off the board here, off the Vegas reservation, and predicting a big bounce back year for Christian McCaffrey, who gets Offensive Player of the Year honors.
I went Justin Jefferson. I think talk about stars
that's
aligned.
a great call.
Yeah,
that's a great call.
Kind of fresh face to some
if
degree
I had
for these
voted,
awards.
I wish I had gone Chase.
You should have just voted because it would have been fine.
It was stupid.
Plus, is there any context within that article of why you didn't do it?
Oh no, they don't. I used to try to do that, and they just ignore it. They just don't count my vote. I was just like, this is stupid. Justin Jefferson got the most votes.
That's a great call.
How about Defensive Player of the Year, Steve?
I think this has got to be unanimous. Micah Parsons.
Unanimous.
I did that too.
It's got to be Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
I did too, because I want to believe in greatness. I want to believe in like J.J. Watt's first few years when he won those back-to-back Defensive Player of the Years. Like, I want to believe that Micah Parsons is one of, if not the most special defensive player I've ever seen. So that's why I voted him. Because he is, so far he is.
Why it's not unanimous is because there are other great players in the league, like my pick, Myles Garrett, who can have a monster season and win that award as well.
He actually, Parsons, amazingly, isn't the favorite in Vegas. He's plus 800. I mean, all of these are long odds.
Is it Garrett?
Garrett, Donald, and Watt are just slightly ahead of Parsons.
Wow, I thought Nick Bosa would be in that mix too.
He's next up.
I had penciled in, and then I wimped out Max Crosby. I just thought someone from the total wilderness might just end up doing
that. Could happen.
We're basic, I guess. Not basic, but the NFL.com writers had Parsons first, just not in Vegas.
Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Oh,
Steve.
Marc Sessler's going to love my pick.
What?
James Cook.
Oh.
People are going to say it's by committee in Buffalo. By the end of the season, James Cook's going to be that guy. And plus, they're going to get so much exposure.
Why is Mark going to love it?
Yeah, I'm trying to piece
Well,
that
you guys are
together.
going to love it too. But I mean, I'm a little off the grid. But you talked about it. But you talked about exposure.
Okay.
The Bills are going to be on TV all the time. We're going to be talking about him.
That's fair.
That's sort of what's been missing for their offense is a running back.
So what you're saying is when you come up with a take that everyone's like, that's a little left of center, that's something that Mark could identify with.
It is A to B, man. You are connecting.
Now I didn't understand.
I'm connecting the dots on this one.
I have Kenny Pickett, who's probably not even going to be a week 1 starter, but I like his setup.
I thought about it.
I think he's going to get into that lineup, and I don't know if he'll thrive or not, but he'll be put in position to succeed with a great coaching staff and a good team around him.
Now, we're not allowed to wager on this as NFL employees.
No, that's forbidden.
If I was allowed, that would have been my pick, and it was, I think, better than the one I had, which was George Pickens, because I think Pickett, you're getting a nice value too, because he's not the starter. But in the end, I think he's the most likely.
He's a QB.
But I just love Pickens in general, and so I stuck with that and think he'll have a monster.
I had Pickens too. I think I have a feeling that he's going to play a lot more than anyone who doubts that he won't be starting material, and he's going to blow up an offensive rookie of the year from the wide receiver position if you're making splash plays all year long. And if the quarterback play is good enough. Something about George Pickens looks like he's been in the league for 5 years. And I think people are just going to be, who have not been watching the preseason, are going to see it right away, and he's going to get votes.
And that team develops wide receivers like it's nobody's
over
business.
and over.
Yeah.
None of us picked Olave, who was actually the most likely guy to win, according to the NFL.com analyst. Christian Watson got 1 vote from Steve Mariucci. I just thought that I'd point that out.
That is such a Packers pick.
Green Bay ties.
How about Mark, defensive rookie of the year?
All right. Maybe I've been pulled in by Hard Knocks, but I think that everything I see about Aiden Hutchinson, and it's on field, off field, who he is, I think they got a winner right away.
That's got to be the Vegas pick, right?
That is not only the most likely person in Vegas and got the overwhelming amount of votes on NFL.com, but is more likely to win this award than anyone is to win any award in Vegas.
Big favorite.
And not exactly
and yet I didn't take him.
I didn't take him.
Who'd you take?
I took Trayvon Walker, who got the second most amount of votes, and also is 3 or 4th. Yeah, he just flashed. He just looked like, okay, this dude's athleticism is going to carry over. I'm excited.
Ali Bunpuri went Derek Stingley Jr., by the way.
Number 3 overall
the only
pick.
individual who picked
And I have the number
player.
4 overall pick, Sauce Gardner. Sure, I'm a homer, but everything I hear about Sauce Gardner in camp has been great. And I'm not putting him in that Revis conversation, but it's kind of that vibe you get the first summer. It's like, oh, this guy is going to be an instant starter, difference maker. I think they nailed that pick.
I've seen him play in person. Aiden Hutchinson is the real deal. I mean, he is effort, he is speed, he's athleticism, and he's got it. So I go Aiden Hudson, but I love all these picks. I think all these guys.
He was the 3rd most popular, and Adam Rank picked Jaquan Brisker from the Bears, despite it, a recent.
Really into the Bears.
I know he loves the Bears. I mean, he did have
he makes my Jets fandom look like.
He also had a surgery recently. Like he might be ready for week.
Rank's just doing what he wants to do there, so it's it's your power.
Just thought I'd throw that one out there.
How about comeback player of the year, Mark?
All right, you like him in a different category, but I went Christian McCaffrey. I think it's just set up because, they've been so different without him. If he comes back and dominates the way that we think, there aren't as many candidates for comeback player of the year that are super obvious this time around, unless someone like Saquon Barkley went off the rails.
Said it is nebulous. It's nebulous.
It is.
What is comeback player of the year? So you can make it anything. It could be Trevor Lawrence. You know what I mean? It could be anybody. Right. I of course went with McCaffrey because that would make no sense if I had him as offensive player of the year, but not comeback player.
That's
of the year.
true.
It's nebulous.
Exactly.
Except they spread those around. That's what I don't like about the whole process.
I really like my pick, which is Saquon Barkley. He's come.
Oh, now you're in on Barkley.
Well, just for this award. Well,
I'm out on Barkley.
I'm totally getting suckered in by a very small sample size, but a couple of those practice clips they sent out and a couple of the preseason,
a little more juice in the legs.
Just feels like, and he's talking like a lot of trash, and that's not really been his thing. He's just like people, he's talking a lot of trash, and I like that confidence.
Yeah, I just can't rock with any Giants because they sent out the picture of their team captain today, and there was like 45. So I can't go with anything Giants. I'm going Jameis Winston.
He got the most votes.
I think Jameis Winston would be the comeback, but I'm also with you, Dan. If I could ride the Ryan Tannehill contrails, it would be Trevor Lawrence. Just a guy who came back from a completely shipwreck of a season because seeing the guy twice, talked to some people, and they're like, guy's going to have the biggest jump year 1 to year 2 than any other second-year player.
See, Winston can't get it because, I don't know if you knew, but the Andy Dalton-assance is going to happen down in New Orleans.
Oh, that's right. God. So he's going to be the one to get Chris Olave over the top.
He'll get comeback player of the year. Wouldn't that be good?
How about, yes, Justin?
No one mentioned Derrick Henry.
All right.
He was third.
Yeah, he's almost too obvious. Yeah,
he was third in the votes, and you're right. He's in the top 3, I think, in Vegas as well.
I also have a question about, you're talking about how nebulous it is. Lamar Jackson missed the final 5 games of the season. Can he count
that feels like you're really pushing it at that point. If he missed December, it's just like.
But yes, I think
can we give it its dignity this reward?
J.K. Dobbins might get more of a run because of the time he missed.
I just don't trust them.
It has to be more of a serious injury. But yes, as we've pointed out, unfortunately for this 65 times on this show, once Phillip Rivers won it,
Correct.
Just from a season where he was like the 17th best quarterback in the league, and then he was like the 3rd best quarterback in the league, and he won the award.
Oh, shucks. Thanks for this award. Coach of the Year, Steve Wyche.
Frank Reich.
Oh,
I really
that's
like
a good
that.
one.
I
With
like
the Colts.
That. Yeah.
I think they're going to take a little remade offense with the quarterback. And I think the Colts.
That's a good call.
And this is,
I'm mad I should have picked that.
Yeah, Frank Reich.
This is why, because there's a narrative in place that I hate the Texans. I was going to go Lovie Smith because I thought they have a chance to build significantly off, not become like a playoff team, but
to rebound.
Yes. But ultimately, I went with logic, and I said if I'm predicting Justin Herbert as MVP, that means the Chargers are going to have like 11 wins, I would think. So Brandon Staley makes sense logically as someone who would get the trophy.
We're linked on this exercise over and over, and through the same logic, because I have Herbert as MVP and think a lot of the Chargers this season. And I think Brandon Staley is also fascinating to listen to a lot of media people. He's a little bit different, and if he takes the curse of the Chargers and like shoots that into the sun, he's a different type of coach than they've had in a long time. And so I went Brandon Staley.
Oh, if you use that logic, he's going to Canton.
Right.
Put him in the hall, make his bust.
Yeah, he got the second most amount of votes behind Sean McDermott.
Right.
Okay.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, because that's a high bar that he's going to have to reach. That is not something reflected in the Vegas. Like, McDermott's not even in the top 15, most likely, which I think is more accurate. The Vegas odds had Staley tied for first with Daboll. It was all first and second-year coaches for the top 8 or 9, because that's usually who wins these awards.
And the Giants?
I guess that seems odd to me. Either way, it's an award where everyone's a pretty extreme long shot, because it's just impossible to predict.
Because so many people are hot on the idea of the Bills finally winning a Super Bowl, people that are involved with this exercise don't realize that the playoffs don't factor into the Coach of the Year voting. They would have to go like 15-2, I think, for this to happen for him.
Shots fired at
the Bills, right?
Steve
Anybody
Mariucci there.
Mooch?
I don't know. No, 8 people voted for McDermott. I voted for Sirianni, by the way, which might be.
Who voted on Mooch's behalf in this building? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's not right.
All right, let's move on.
It's a regular season award. I love the Eagles in the regular season with their schedule, so I'm taking Sirianni.
Let's stop right here. Let's take a break before we get to our division picks and Super Bowl. All right, let's get to the playoff picks now. All right, let's start with the division winners. Let's just go straight across. I have Bills in the East, Ravens in the North, Colts in the South, Chargers in the West. How about you, Steve?
So I'm going Bills in the East, Bengals in the North, Colts in the South, Chiefs in the West.
A lot of agreement here. I'm with Steve on the Bengals in the North. I think everyone's going to have the Bills. I also have the Colts. And I do have the Chiefs standing tall, even though I see them and the Chargers as maybe the 2 best teams in the AFC, along with the Bills, I guess.
I have the Bills in the East, the Bengals in the North, the Titans in the South. Where's the respect? And the Chargers in the West.
So it's a lot of chalk, a little disagreement on Ravens, Bengals. As the season, it's like the offseason went along, I feel like people got lower on the Ravens for some reason, which was I'd feel bad about.
All right, so there are now, as of last year, 3 wild cards.
This is where it's going to get good.
And I may or may not have forgotten about the Bengals when I was doing this, putting in my intense research. But that actually works out for me because it makes it seem like I see something that the others don't see.
You have a vision,
yet.
right?
I have the Chiefs as the first wild card, the Broncos as the second, and the team that everyone thinks has no chance of figuring it out this year, the Patriots, claiming the third wild card.
So does anyone else have Broncos or Patriots?
I have Broncos.
Okay.
I also have the Chiefs number 1, the Ravens number 2, and the Broncos number 3, just sliding in.
I think it's just so hard for all 4 of those teams to do well, and I feel like the Broncos are the most likely to faceplant. My surprise team was I snuck the Dolphins in there as my third wild card.
Dig it?
I think the schedule, I think the defense is actually pretty good, and there's enough offensive talent. They can scheme it all up, but the rest of my picks were chalk, Chargers and Ravens.
Would you have
Same here. I have Chargers, Ravens, Dolphins.
Did anyone else?
Wyche and I had the exact same picks all through.
All 3 of you except Mark have the Titans going first seed to out of the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite on the show, Gravedigger?
They lost a lot this year,
Are
man.
you still saying that the Titans are like a real first seed team last year?
Last year?
Yeah.
What makes them not a real first seed team last year? I mean,
they were technically the first seed.
They beat Mahomes and Allen and Stafford in the regular season.
Yep.
Beat the Bills?
I mean, they lost a lot.
How did that playoff game go?
They looked terrible in the playoffs, but they are still going to make the playoffs this year.
Do you have them in the playoffs this year?
Oh, yeah.
Of course. They wouldn't let him do his podcast.
Am I literally the only one that has the entire company that has the Patriots making the playoffs?
We don't have the rest of the company's picks, unfortunately, on the playoffs. They're dropping that on Thursday, and then the
bummer.
Super Bowl picks
I would imagine
Friday.
Willie McGinnis might go Patriots.
So I don't know. We just know our room.
Or
but you're
Willie's
right.
pick representative.
Right, if he participated in
I
this
hate
thing.
that like there's so many good teams in the AFC. It's almost hard to not
tough.
go chalk, except for maybe that last spot.
How about over in...
How about this one? None of us had the Raiders.
Yeah, well, it's tough.
And that was a tough call. That was a real tough call.
I think they have a chance. They remind me, they're a little like the Broncos where I think their upside's high, and Saints where their upside's higher than people think. It wouldn't shock me if they won 11 or 12, but I also didn't put them in the playoffs.
All right, how about in the NFC? I have the Eagles in the East, the Packers in the North, the Bucks in the South, Rams in the West. So chalky.
I have Eagles in the East, Packers in the North, Rams in the West, and Saints in the South.
Okay.
We're the same. I have the same. I got Eagles East, Packers North, Saints South, Rams West.
See, this is like you would almost change your picks if you knew what the rest of the show is doing, because I have the same as you guys, and we're all trying to be cute. It's like, well, let's not go 4 chalk picks. Let's go Saints over Bucks.
I believe Saints, though. I'm not.
You have
attempting
Saints
to be
over
cute.
Bucks, too?
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. I think the Saints are really good. I was getting heat on Twitter for some reason for dogging this Saints trade, and there was a lot of Saints fans and media that's like, the national media is so against the Saints. I was like, I don't think so, man. I think they're going to be the consensus wild card team, and on this show, 3 of us have them in winning the division.
Yeah.
They're loaded on defense.
I have the Saints in the playoffs. I have the 49ers as the number 1 wild card. The Saints is the number 2. And I got crazy. You know, I got a soft spot for some reason for these guys. The Vikings is the 3rd wild card team. How about you, Steve?
Look, I've got Bucks, 49ers, and Vikings. The Vikings are going to be better. I mean, I don't see why
Norse
people think the
Nation.
Vikings are going to be out of this.
Well, I think
Vikings are going to be pretty good.
They'll be
man.
in it. I mean, I don't have a problem with them being a wild card team.
I love it.
Yeah.
But do you have them as one?
No, I picked my number 1 wild card is Niners. I think this is all going to work out for them, and then they're going to be spicy in the playoffs as they are. I don't really care where they're slotted. Look out for them. I don't care if they play Green Bay and it's 1
easy,
degree.
Mark.
The Bucks will be the 2nd wild card, but I think there's I feel just weird energy around the Bucks. I don't know what's going to happen with that team.
You seem to have a lot of theories about
I'm not alone.
the energy.
I'm struggling to buy this, even though I submitted it. I'm going Cardinals as the 3rd wild card team.
You don't believe that.
I kind of do, because I think everyone's just like so counting them out that maybe they're just like, we actually are talented. We have a talented quarterback who's a pretty good play caller, maybe better than the head coach.
I'm changing mine because I had the Vikings as my 3rd.
So who are you going to put in?
Now I'm putting the Cowboys in.
Why does it scare you?
How are the Cowboys not being represented?
Why do you get so
Why
upset?
are you so antsy?
I just want it like statistically to sort of represent all the different
It
possibilities.
doesn't have to. It's just like what you feel.
No, I'm glad you did that because I was going to ask why none of you had the Cowboys.
Nobody.
I just don't like the Cowboys this year. I don't like the vibes.
Their defense is going to be outstanding. Their defense is going to be really good. Their secondary is really good, right? Their linebackers are good. Their defensive front has a potential to be pretty good. Their offensive line, I mean, that Tyron Smith injury is real. They can sit there and talk about all the gum they're going to patch the yacht, the torpedo-sized hole in the yacht with. That's a huge loss.
Fair.
Wide receivers. Who are you doubling?
Still have Dak Prescott. So Dak Prescott plus a defense. But you're right, I picked the Vikings. When
It just got worse.
I thought it was going to be cute.
It just got worse. They had a bad offseason.
How's Gallup going to be on
He's
the
not
field?
on
That's
PUP.
very important. Yeah, I think he's such an important part of what they're going to do.
Jerry Jones said he could play this week if it were the Super Bowl, but would not be playing because it's week 1.
Smart.
So, okay.
Play it smart. All right, Super Bowl pick time, Steve Wyche.
Rams and Chiefs. And here's the thing. I very much.
Who's winning?
I contemplated putting the Colts in out of the AFC. One of my favorite offseason moves that's not talked about enough is Yannick Ngakoue going to the Colts. This dude, man, look at his stats. His forced fumbles, his sacks, just his disruption in a division like that, in a conference like that. I think their defense is going to be pretty darn good, but I'm going to go with the Chiefs right here because I look at the talent on their defense, and Steve Spagnuolo's history of those guys getting better through the season. Rams versus Chiefs, with the Rams repeating.
Back to back.
How about that?
Has
They're
not
actually-
happened
yeah,
in a very long time.
When they sign Odell in December, and they go 4 wide with Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Odell, and Van Jefferson.
I suspect that
I
won't
like
be
that
a
landing
popular
spot.
pick. Actually, the people kind of won't. That won't be many. There won't be many NFL.com writers that pick the Rams. They're 5th or 6th, actually, most likely in Vegas.
It's
So
hard. It's hard to repeat. That's real.
Any little birdies talking to Steve Wyche about the elbow of the quarterback in Los Angeles?
I haven't heard anything that's concerning right now, but I mean, you have to think about it. 17 games. People talk about being a baseball injury. That's never comforting to someone who's got to throw it.
I mean, McVay's saying he's never seen it with any quarterback ever in his coaching career.
So we'll see. Maybe Cam Akers gets 300 runs.
All right. For the rest of us that were on the article, Steve was above us.
I was left
journalistically.
out. I was left out.
Actually, it's not too late. You know,
Ali
I think
took
they
your
haven't
spot.
posted
I
those.
was kind of like Dan and the Bengals.
Yeah, exactly.
Just forgotten about.
I'm a little annoyed about that, but again, it does, like, to Gregg's point, it gets another team in the mix. Let's read our blurbs that we submitted.
I like that.
With our Super Bowl pick.
I need to fix it. I'm looking at it right
no,
now.
you can't
Greg
fix things,
Greg has some
No.
deep-seated
It's
issues with this exercise.
Not the pick. I'm just looking at the sentence, and I was like, I could have done more with that.
Yeah, but it had your name on, and it went on the website. Like,
it's
you
not
got
up
to
yet.
think of it
it's
that
not
way.
up yet. I can still edit it.
All right, well, you got to go with what you sent in, okay? Please.
I'm stupid.
All right, let's get some dramatic music. Let's add the gravitas here. A Wychean gravitas. Zeuser. Bills over Bucks. For decades, Tom Brady lorded over the AFC East with an iron fist. Now it's Josh Allen's turn to rule. Not just his division, but the whole of the football world. It's pretty good.
That was good.
That was their style. That was not bad.
I like that.
I am just seeing like Marv Levy hovering over
Absolutely.
that entire segment.
All right. Let's save Gregg for last.
Yeah, let's save Gregg.
Mark.
All right.
This is good music, by the way.
I've got the Chargers over the Eagles.
Ooh.
In full bloom, Justin Herbert emerges as the league's prized treasure under center. His MVP campaign serves as a rousing jaunt through pro football's wilderness, capped in the Arizona desert with a 14-play game-winning overtime drive. Its final note, Herbert scampering to pay dirt to off the favored Eagles.
Love it. It's got a lot of Sessler check marks, like wilderness in it. I love it.
That sounds like there were 4 fourth-down conversions on that 14-play drive, too.
Oh, yeah. Ending that argument.
And now, I actually have, can I hit the music I have, Gregg's? Eagles win. They're the best. I love them.
Well, it's compelling.
That's basically it.
Let's hear it.
Eagles over Chiefs. Eagles fans won't be able to complain anymore after their second surprise Super Bowl in 5 years.
Well, okay, it's short and to the point, but also I know what you're saying, because Eagles fans like Gonzo and Connie Fox did a lot of complaining the last few years, not forgetting they had one of the more dramatic Super Bowl runs to beat Belichick and Brady in dramatic circumstances. They acted like they were still like a sad Jets or Browns or whatever fan the last couple of years. So now you're going to get more glory potentially.
I think the way that Gregg did that, it doesn't need to be a long, flowery composition. It's like, I'm
the
going to
point.
issue one sentence that's going to be truth, and it's going to hurt for some people to read.
But
and hear.
in some way, just doing some self-reflection here, it's almost symbolic of some of my interpersonal problems. In a moment where...
Which are various.
Yeah, in a moment where I'm actually making all those Eagles fans happy. I picked your team to surprisingly win the Super Bowl. I spend that one sentence instead taking a shot at all of them that they're a bunch of complainers.
That's such a good call. That's a level of self-awareness that I really appreciate, Greg. You did.
Greg experience.
You negged them within the celebration of them winning another Super Bowl.
Oh, I cannot wait to see, though, the paintings of Super Bowl championship winning quarterbacks for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts and Nick Foles.
I mean, I did it because we don't know what's going to happen, so I picked one that I would like to see personally.
You got Sean Kelly behind the glass pumped
I'm just
up.
being real.
Eagles
It could happen, man. The Eagles are loaded.
And I was going to put Bengals, and Chargers are another team. I would love to see, in terms of realistic teams, those are teams I would love to see win the Super Bowl. So I was very close to putting one of them. But
I'm just on the Chargers like I am, like on the Knicks, like I used to just love the Knicks. Oh, they're so good. And they would just crush me.
You've been hurt.
I mean, the Chargers, this is like 25 years of like, now, I'm a Missouri guy. You got to show me finally. So if it happens, I'm in.
Because even some of those great Chargers teams with Rivers, then even if they did put together the regular season where they weren't snake bit, they'd trip on, their you-know-what, like in the playoffs. It's time.
I also have done this like 8 or 9 years. I don't think I've ever gotten one Super Bowl team from either conference correct. So picking Chargers over Eagles is bad news for
But that's
both
also
teams.
why our league is fun and why I think this podcast in part is so successful. It is like incredible that the Bengals came one drive away from winning the Super Bowl last year when I guarantee you nobody had the Bengals in any of their predictions last August.
Not even to make the playoffs. I remember going back and checking on our website. No one. We had them as
this
the one
summer
seed.
was Joe Burrow's not healthy. Jamar Chase is dropping everything thrown his way. Suddenly it's like week 1. It's like all those problems just.
Who's that team this year though? Who's that team that emerges from like the swamplands?
Well, I would say the Cowboys are the kind of thing where everyone's so down on them. Maybe though the people are down on the Bucs right now.
I think the Saints are one team. A lot of us had them winning the division.
Yeah, but come on, like the Bengals, right?
Okay.
So you're saying organizationally,
someone
that's
deep in the mire.
Is it like
the Raiders?
Is it like Washington? No, the Raiders were a playoff team last year.
It's clearly the New York Jets.
The Vikings.
So can we just move on and all agree on that?
Someone always goes worst to first.
What about your Atlanta Falcons, Steve? You just
no, their schedule's too.
Collected massive paycheck doing their preseason work.
Yeah, no, their schedule's too brutal. I tell you, a sleeper team, they're not going to go to the Super Bowl, but Jacksonville's going to be better than what people think. They got players, and I think Doug Peterson and some of the guys on that staff.
Good Coach of the Year pick as well.
Yeah, and that quarterback, man, talking to people, they're like, he's different, and now he's got some people who are teaching him how to play the position. I don't know if he's got enough offensive talent around him, but they've got some players on defense, and Jacksonville could be a team that could rattle a few
For
sabers.
truly ignored teams, the Panthers were the one. Now I kind of wish I threw them in there. That I thought
it's
could
over.
have like a 9 or 10 win season of a truly ignored. I don't know about the Super Bowl, but I think it's possible with their
they
personnel.
got players.
There's a great long-form piece on Justin Tucker in the New York Times Magazine. Check it out if you are of interest in Tucker, the greatest kicker of all time. And it does make me think of Trevor Lawrence. Tucker was just a guy until he went to Baltimore, had a real kicking coach that they had at that organization that took him to the next level and made him great. Like Trevor Lawrence had no structure and support when he entered the NFL last year, and now he does, and he has a better roster around him.
Things went great last year for the Jaguars. I'm not if you look at it from on the whole.
You know also went great? Reaching out to the listeners and saying, let's get a Steve Wyche theme song. You want to hear a few more before we say goodbye?
Yes.
Do you want to hear a few more? Steve, I know you do.
We'll take one
how
more.
Many
how many
theme songs?
Gregg, a woozy banger?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I mean, are you going to play these at home for the family? I mean,
that reggae
is pretty
thing.
cool. If I had
as a kid, say that reggae hit was slapping right there.
No, there are some songs I can't. How many songs have been written about you and performed in your life, Steve?
That would be none.
So listen, now we have
20.
a bunch. How about this one?
20.
This is Ricky Williamson, who calls himself the Fine Art Rascal. Not the greatest vocal performance, but I love the effort.
Okay. Yeah, a little critical there by Gravedigger.
I mean,
Smoke music.
We love you, Steve Wyche. We love you, Steve Wyche. We love you, Steve Wyche. We do. We love you, Steve Wyche.
All right. Not bad.
we need to combine.
That sounds like a little Ted Lasso outro.
Right. We need to combine that beat with the woman who sang on the second track.
We got to get that woman on the show.
I mean, I think that's the. By the way, I'm sorry about that first guy, but that second song was.
That might be it.
That was a
well.
banger.
Let's
this
not
one's
make
my
any
favorite.
Statements
That
yet.
Okay.
All right, we have a new favorite, at least to Gravedigger. Here
This
we go.
is from Jake the Myth Smith.
That rhymes.
Steve Wyche reporting daily on the NFL. Steve Wyche live on your TV, looking good as hell. Steve Wyche, the man's got sources he'll never tell. He informs and entertains us. He's got a podcast on hiatus, and he's on the Falcons' payroll, surely making more than Hanzus. Now he's here to join the heroes for today. Steve Wyche.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, the lyrics.
That's good.
We have been sitting on these for a long time.
That's good.
Oh, man.
I know. I could not believe
That
it.
was strong.
Wow.
I just hope these listeners didn't become disillusioned with us. They never played my song. They never responded. It's been a year and a half. If they listen today, what a pleasant surprise it's going to be.
How did we pick a winner?
We haven't picked a winner
This
yet.
is it. It's
I
happening.
thought you suggested the first one was the winner. Rory's.
No. All right, let's listen to one more.
I was going to go out on this one.
Oh, let's go out on this one. Let's say goodbye, Steve. You've said it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
This is one of the best Wyche appearances.
Oh, man,
of
this
all
is
time.
strong.
And to the listeners out there, we didn't say. I know we told you that around the NFC in 48 minutes would be this show. I think by now you've probably figured out that that's not the case. We'll be doing that tomorrow with Patrick Claybon, our Thursday show. So make sure you check that out. And then next week is the start of the regular season, and we got a bunch of exciting stuff to announce for that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Until Thursday, remember to heed the call and just respect Steve Wyche, because the man has a whole album of tributes now.
And a podcast on hiatus.
Hit it.
Here's Evan Hornsby to play us out.
He's the one with that white hair, man. I think it's like wisdom.
Steve Wyche.
I like this.
Knows a bit about football, a bit about life. Steve Wyche. Steve Wyche. On the ETN podcast, and everything is alright. Steve Wyche. Steve Wyche. On the ETN podcast, and everything is alright. Steve Wyche.
Boom shot.
Yeah.
Shot.
That guy, I know who you're talking about.
There are now like 500 people driving around Europe listening to that.
I love it. Man, our listeners came with it.
Yeah, that was strong. Well done.
Those were like legit high quality songs.
Hiatus on podcast.
The line